Why have we come to earth? Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
Good morning. It's been a quiet little week in my life. Nothing much, you know. How about you? Last weekend, as many of you know, I was up in Eugene for a convention, and my sweetie and I decided to follow the suggestion of a number of people when we decided to postpone our wedding and just elope. So I come back an old married man, as I told a couple people, and I'm very happy about that. And we will still be doing our wedding. Thank you. We'll still be doing our wedding ceremony here on March the 12th for this family here. So we didn't want to leave you out. It's just that I woke up one morning and said, you know, well, it's like I'm going to be in Eugene, bunch of ministers, bunch of musicians. Cynthia's daughters both live in Eugene. My younger daughter lives in Portland, 2 hours away. Why not? You know, and so it wasn't anything about you guys. It's just, you know, it was, if we could have videotaped it and send the feed down here, we would have, but, you know. And my older daughter actually drove up from Petaluma to be there with us. So we were surrounded by family, and it was very sweet. So so thank you very much, and we will honor and bless you by sharing in that love in March also, and thank you so much. So we're looking this month at the 4 agreements, and I like it. Luke, you know, beforehand was talking about, you know, it's like 4 notes that you can riff off of, or 4 chords. You know, when rock and roll was you know, first coming out, everybody made fun of it because it's just 3 chords. You know, it's like, but look how many decades those 3 chords keep on, you know, creating more and more new music. You know, and for that matter, even, you know, you think of Beethoven's Fifth, da 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 da. Okay, 4 notes. You know, actually 2 notes with the rhythm, and what you can do with that. You know, so these 4 agreements are something that we can look at in our lives and spend the rest of our lives really working with, really diving down into. So even if you're familiar with them, you know, it's like, what else is new? How else can I apply this in my life? Where else can I apply this in my life? I don't know about you, but I've noticed that once in a while I'm off of these agreements. I don't know if anybody else has ever had that experience, but once in a while, you know, even while I'm teaching it, you know, I remember I asked Reverend Sue, you know, about a month or 2 ago when I knew I was going to be doing the 4 agreements, and she was going to be speaking next Sunday. I said, would you be willing to cover, you know, next Sunday? The topic is, you know, the 2nd agreement, which is don't take it personally. And she goes, oh, that's perfect for me because I take everything personally. You know? So I love this, you know, and she did a fabulous talk last week. For those of you who are here, I hope you got to watch it. I got to watch it on the video, and it was fabulous way of looking at it. I love the 4 agreements because the way he arranges them. The first one is a being. And it's a reminder for us to be. Be impeccable with your word. The next 2 are don'ts. Don't do this, right? Because it doesn't work. And then the last one is one more do. So we'll take a look at all of that. But first we'll start, we've looked at the dream. We've looked at what we've inherited as the dream of the planet, and we've agreed to, oftentimes not consciously, but we agreed to it at some point in time just to fit in. And the dream of the planet, in case you've noticed, as he says, is mostly a dream of suffering and hell. You read the news, right? Watch the news, something, you pay attention. So for a lot of people, not necessarily you, but for a lot of people on the worldwide basis, it's a dream of lack, it's a dream of violence, it's a dream of war, it's a dream of suffering. And so that's the dream that many people have hooked into as the planetary dream. And in order to be able to create heaven on earth, we need to practice self-love. Self-love is the way out of the dream of hell. So take a breath, practicing self-love. Just check in with yourself, and just take a moment and say, I love you. to yourself? Yeah. So these 4 agreements are a practice of self-love. So the first one was be impeccable with your word. And impeccable means without sin. And the major sin is separation. Okay? So it's being without separation. It's using our words to create what we really do want in life instead of what we don't want. So it's using our words to create love, to create joy, to create high thought, to create a sense of oneness. Okay, so that was the first agreement, is take your word and create something good out of it. Create what you want out of life rather than using your word to take it down. Last Sunday, Reverend Sue looked at don't take it personally. We're only hurt by taking things personally because somewhere we agree with them. If somebody says something to you and you take it personally and get hurt, it's because somewhere in your consciousness, you're in agreement with them. And you can change that agreement, by the way. And again, the way out of that agreement is self-love. The thing that Don Miguel Ruiz reminds us is nothing people do is because of you. As he says, most of us are so involved in our own dream, in our own process, most people aren't even thinking of you as they're talking to you. Okay? Once in a while we meet somebody who, you talk to them and you're talking to them and you actually get, they're actually listening to you. Have you had that experience? And it's sweet, isn't it? And it's rare. They're not just checking out what's going on behind you and Facebooking and texting and, they're listening to you. They're caring about you. When we live in self-love, we can't be hurt. And it doesn't mean that we don't do things, that we don't make mistakes or anything like that, but we forgive ourselves. We live in self-love and we make amends. We do what we need to do to make it better. So that's number 2. Don't take it personally. Number 3 today is don't make assumptions. And I had to laugh because as Reverend Sue, says, she took everything personally, I might make an assumption or two somewhere along the line. We make assumptions for 2 reasons. Number 1 is we need answers. We want to have answers. And there's Don Miguel Ruiz has a wonderful quote, a wonderful phrase here. It is very interesting how the human mind works. We have the need to justify everything, to explain and understand everything in order to feel safe. We have millions of questions that need answers because there are so many things that the reasoning mind cannot explain. It is not important to me if the answer is correct, just that the answer makes us feel safe. This is why we make assumptions. When people talk about living in the mystery of the universe, as teachers of science of mind, I know for all of us in the classes, every once in a while, somebody will come up and say, well, why did this happen? And it's like, I don't know. There's a wonderful story of a Zen master who's being asked, what happens after I die? And the Zen master goes, I don't know. And the person says, but you're a Zen master. And he goes, well, yes, but I'm not a dead Zen master. I haven't been there yet. I don't know. And I don't know is a perfectly good answer, but especially in our age of scientific reasoning, where we have to have the answer to everything, we have to have an answer, and therefore we make assumptions. We make our best guess, and sometimes it's correct, and oftentimes it's not correct. So that's number 1, is we need answers. Number 2, we don't have the courage to ask questions. We don't have the courage to ask questions. There's a collective agreement of don't ask. Remember that wonderful thing in the Army for quite a while? Don't ask, don't tell? Don't ask. Don't want to know. Just keep it down. Okay? We do this because we don't want to pry, and because we already should know the answer. If I ask a question, it says I don't know the answer. And then I look what? Dumb. Foolish. Not in control. Okay? And I look not right. And it's important for all of us to be right. It's important for our mind to be right, to have that control. So we create assumptions based out of that. And when we combine making assumptions with taking things personally, ooh, it's a toxic mix. Don Miguel Ruiz says, all the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. If you're feeling sad or caught up in a drama, you're either making assumptions or taking things personally or doing both. Take a breath and just notice that. And that's a wonderful thing to do. The next time you catch yourself in that situation, you can say, wait, time out, stop. See, now you have a blueprint. You know what to do. You say, wait, I'm either making an assumption without asking a question, or I'm taking something personally that probably wasn't intended personally. Even if it was intended personally, I don't have to take it personally. And we can stop the process. Married life has been wonderful this week. A couple nights ago, I decided that Cynthia was ticked off at me. She didn't say anything about the dinner that I fixed her, or at least I didn't hear her say anything about the dinner that I fixed her. I had a meeting to go to, and I just walked out of the house without saying a thing to her, because she wasn't saying a thing to me. You think as ministers we'd be more mature, but once in a while, what can I say? I had this assumption, I took it personally, and then I acted appropriately based on that assumption. Did I create heaven or did I create hell? Hell, for both of us. Okay? And that's how quickly it can work. I just make an assumption, she's not happy with me. And then I take it personally and I act from that. Boom. And we're heading down a path we don't want to head down. Now, fortunately, we got ourselves back out of that path. We're still married. I teased her that I'd cancel the call to the divorce lawyer. Our assumptions are based on a belief. And a core belief, one of the core beliefs that they're based on is that everybody acts, thinks, and feels like me. The rest of the world operates the way that I know and think that it should. Okay? That's the core belief that we have, is that everybody else should do it my way. Right? How does that work? Not. Either they do act that way or they should act that way. But the truth is, they don't. And so, if we're believing that, then we don't need to ask questions because we already know what's right. We already know how it should be. We don't need to ask no stinking questions. We also make assumptions about ourselves. I'm this way. I have this ability or I lack this ability. Oftentimes because somebody else told me so. And I decided to buy into that. And so we don't inquire and find out. We don't stretch ourselves and see if there's anything more beyond that. So we have assumptions about the outside world. We have assumptions about our own inner selves. And until we start to ask questions, until we start to inquire, we are encapsulated, we are caught and trapped by those things. Byron Katie, how many are familiar with Byron Katie? I would encourage you all to get familiar with Byron Katie. She does a process called The Work. And she has a great book. It's actually in the bookstore. There's one copy in the bookstore. Whoever gets out of here first will get that copy. Called Who Would You Be Without Your Story? Isn't that just the title alone? Isn't that a great title? Who would you be without your story? Okay? She does this work. It's a powerful tool for inquiry. We're going to look at it maybe in a moment here. The way out of making assumptions is to ask questions. Ask questions. It's okay to not know everything, despite what your teachers told you in school, or somebody told you, wherever it was. Don Miguel Ruiz says the way to keep yourself from making assumptions is to ask questions. Make sure the communication is clear. If you don't understand, ask. Have the courage to ask questions until you are as clear as you can be, and even then, do not assume you know all there is to know about a given situation. Also, find your voice to ask for what you want. Everybody has the right to tell you no or yes, but you always have the right to ask. Likewise, everybody has the right to ask you, and you have the right to say yes or no. How would it be if our culture and our conversations were more questioning, more asking questions of each other? If instead of just assuming that Cynthia was angry with me, if I had said, "Are you angry with me?" Would have saved us a lot of, frustration that night, if I had just done that. Where in your life could you start to ask more questions? If you have a partner, if you have a friend, if you have children, if you have parents, if you have a boss, if you have employees, if you have co-workers, if you have fellow human beings you share the planet with. That includes everybody, right? We're good? Okay. Where can we start asking questions? And Byron Katie talks about it, and I love the work because it's sort of like it really works with this particular agreement because it helps us to ask powerful questions, empowering questions. She said, in the work she says, whenever we're in stress or whenever we're in pain, find the thought that is causing that pain. Find the thought that is causing that stress and begin to ask 4 questions about it. The first question is it true? Is it true? So let's take my incident with Cynthia the other night. Is it true that she was angry with me? Well, the truth is, I didn't know. I assumed, but I didn't know she was angry. Second question, can I absolutely know that it's true? There are some things that we can't absolutely know are true. Deal with it. There are some things in life that we cannot absolutely know are true. Yes? Okay. So we do our best to find out is it true, but can I absolutely know that it's true? Third, how do I react when I believe it? If I believe that this is true, how do I react? Do I come and match that energy, which is what I did that night? I love it. It's something I learned, obviously not completely, but a lot about a long time ago, is don't match other people's energy, particularly if it's going in the place where you don't want to go. My mother used to say, one jackass in the room at a time is enough. That's the other way of saying that. Okay? So we don't match energies. How do I react when I believe it? And who would I be without that thought? Okay, so is it true? Can I absolutely know it's true? How do I react when I believe it? And who would I be without that thought? And then she invites us to do something that's really powerful. She invites us to turn the thought around to its several opposites and find out how those are true. So if we take an example of my partner doesn't love me. First of all, is it true? We find out. And the only way we can know is ask. Do you no longer love me? Can I absolutely know that it's true? How do I react when I believe it? Because if I believe my partner doesn't love me, how am I probably going to react? In an unloving manner, right? Or a defensive manner or a protective manner. And who would I be without that thought? I would probably be my loving self. Because that's who I naturally am. So the opposites of my partner doesn't love me are, 1, my partner does love me. 2, I don't love my partner. 3, I don't love myself. Those are the opposites we can play with. And then to find 3 genuine examples of how each of those turnaround questions is true or more true than the original thought. So if I'm playing with this little incident with, and I'm just going to do this, I haven't practiced this out in my head, so bear with me here, Cynthia was upset with me the other night. It's, my partner does love me. My partner is not upset with me. Okay? Was that more true? Well, it turned out that it was more true than what I was thinking. Okay? I'm upset with my partner. Dang, I was. I stomped out of that house, went to the meeting, then I went afterwards to Holiday Market, bought myself, just myself, a big old piece of chocolate cake, not to share. It's embarrassing, you know. And then I don't love myself. And so that's our deepest fear, is that we're not lovable, and therefore the other person isn't going to love us. If I absolutely know I'm lovable, I'll never believe that somebody else doesn't love me, right? And so if they're acting in a non-loving manner, I will just say, gosh, I'm sorry, they've got something going on, but I'm not going to take it personally. Instead, I took it personally. She doesn't love me. I had this little trigger, and it was amazing to watch it go this week. As soon as I got married, see, I had a previous marriage that some of you have heard a little bit about, where it started off fabulous. And then a few years later, took a left turn, and I, to this day, don't know what happened in that left turn. And it's just one of those unknowables. I'm not even going to worry. I don't even worry about it anymore. But it took a left turn, and that person became extremely unhappy with everything about me. So I get married. We have a little something happens, and immediately my mind goes, here we go again. I heard it. Here we go again. Now, Cynthia is not that previous person. Not at all. Okay? But I watched my mind go down that path. Anybody ever hear something like that, where you're walking along and all of a sudden you're going down a previous path even though the person is not? Yeah. So that was also kind of an edge for me underneath all that. So I had to find some ways to say that. And when I start to ask those questions, it opens up a whole new way of understanding things. Okay? So this week, what I'm going to invite us to do is, first of all, to watch for the assumptions that we make. Just pay attention to the assumptions that we make about ourselves and about other people. The way you'll know if you're making an assumption is if you're feeling stress or pain. If you're feeling anything other than heaven, you're either making an assumption or taking it personally. And so if you notice, if you go through this week, a couple of you are going, oh God, that could describe my whole week, right? But if you notice that, just notice, what's my assumption? Where am I taking it personally? Don't beat yourself up for it. Just notice it. Number 2, begin to ask questions. Is this really true? Do I really know what's going on? Do I really know what's going on? We've all watched people spin up because of something that they think is going on, but eventually they find out it was never going on in the first place. It was never happening in the first place. And then finally, practice living in harmony with the way things are. If we truly can just see the way things are, and you know what? The way things are is just the way they are. We like to should on them. They should be different. They should act this way. They should feel and think this way. But if we just notice, things just are. What a profound way of being. Every master teacher has said, just be aware of the way things are. Just noticing that. So practice living in harmony with the way things are, how they really are, and don't take them personally. That's the trick. Are we good for that this week? Yes. Watching for the assumptions we're making, asking questions. Just practice asking questions. It can be fun after a while. Little kids, right? Why? 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 Why is there error? If we start just asking more questions, it can be playful, it can be fun, it can be curious, it can be a game, and a loving game. So we're going to watch the assumptions we make, we're going to ask questions, we're going to practice living in harmony with the way things are. I'm going to close with a wonderful quote from Byron Katie. When someone sympathizes with your anger or sadness based on assumptions, they're just supporting your insanity. Got it? When someone sympathizes with your anger or sadness that you've based on assumptions, they're just supporting your insanity. Yes, you're right. Your partner doesn't love you. And we all call that a friend. A friend is just someone who agrees with you. So bring me an enemy. Enemies are very clear about what I haven't discovered yet. The enemy turns out to be the friend. Where do you go, and to whom do you go to get your concepts justified? Where do you go to get your concepts justified? And is that person truly your friend, Or is the one who won't accept your justified concepts truly your friend? Let's move into prayer. So I recognize that there is that one infinite presence, that is pure love, that is pure harmony, that knows exactly how to live this entire life perfectly. It's been doing it for billions of years in this universe. Probably is going to continue to do it for billions of years more in this universe. And it's doing it right here and right now. All of life, every little detail, every infinite speck of life is within the divine, the one mind. All those people we judge and don't like are one of the divine mind. All those people we love and think are wonderful are within the divine mind. All of it is one. All of it is this life expressing. And it is in perfect divine order and harmony, even if we don't see it. And so I speak my word that each of us is willing to raise our viewpoint, to see more through God's eyes the perfection of what is, to breathe into things, to not take things personally, but to recognize the perfection that is already there, to not make assumptions, but to inquire more. I'd like to learn more about that. To have this open, curious, loving, gentle, compassionate view of the world and view of ourselves. That we take this love, we take this compassion, we take this nurturing and apply it. And we recognize that as we do so, we begin to move from the experience of hell to the experience of heaven. From the experience of separation to the experience of oneness and unity. We allow ourselves to have that experience. We allow ourselves to just simply be the place where that experience blossoms and takes root. And for each person who is engaged in this practice, I'm so grateful. I know that the good that manifests from this blesses each person and blesses the world. And so we release how this shows up, how we do this, into the law that knows how to manifest it in form in the most beautiful and perfect ways in our lives and throughout everywhere else. And it does so, right here and right now. And so it is. So we are. Thank you.